Good morning, everybody. Today's proceedings are being broadcast, but after a 10-minute delay, those with mobile devices may use them to report what they've heard in the hearing room, but only after 10 minutes have elapsed. They may not be used for recording or photography. Again, as has happened on all 3 days in which this witness has been giving evidence, may I thank those in the public gallery for their silence and ask that it continues. Thank you. Mr. Barr.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Francis, I would like to start by clearing up one point from yesterday.
Yes.
Just to be clear, did you or did you not get close to Michael Mansfield, King's Counsel?
Not in the slightest. No.
Can I move now to...
Mr. Barr, from yesterday, it's just a question that's from yesterday that's related, and because the chair has drawn particular attention that he wants help with it, you, with your question, I'm very, very sure you're going to ask me, but can I just double check on this particular issue? Can I just send that through to you to ask? Because I know the chair's drawn attention that he wanted help specifically with this area. Just overnight thought time.
Thank you. If you could show that to the chairman, please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Francis, the Stephen Lawrence inquiry was announced in July 1997. Can I ask you, first of all, what was the reaction within the SDS as a unit when that announcement was made?
Surprised it hadn't happened earlier. There was a lot of talk within the SDS, concerns raised earlier, far earlier, I can't exactly say when, that there was almost an inevitable feeling, not necessarily a public inquiry, but some sort of major examination into the police failings. From the undercover perspective, when I was out there, this was certainly amongst the activists that there was, from them, it was more certain it was going to be a public inquiry. And I can only go back to my own experience of whistleblowing here. After I started a whistleblowing, there was a momentum that no matter how many different inquiries the police tried to squash this all down, that inevitably something was going to happen, and the word public inquiry to me was certainly banded far earlier on than this was called. It drew exact parallels. So the SDS was not surprised in the slightest. There was certainly a long timeline and a build up to it.
Did it prompt any adverse comments about Baroness Lawrence or Dr. Lawrence?
No.
Dwayne Brooks?
No.
Can I move now from the unit's reaction to your reaction? What was your feeling upon the announcement of the inquiry?
It was confirmation to me of something I expressed earlier to my management, that it wasn't definitely that the public inquiry was going to happen. It was if I left the unit, and really by the time they were talking about me going off the unit, which was, as we discussed yesterday, sort of about the September 96 marker, I had concerns, feeling that there was going to be some sort of inquiry. How were they going to deal with what they knew that I had been out in these campaigns? So from mine, to me, it was an additional heightened concern, but I'd already touched base. Sometimes they're so myopic for the unit, they're not looking at the individuals, and I felt that I really had to look after myself, because I started to get the feeling that the looking after me was not as much as a priority as looking after the SDS. The way I was being treated while I was coming off was confirming that to me.
So what were you concerned might happen to you as a result of a public inquiry?
That my role, that I'd been undercover into, we're not going to break it down, I felt that I was the undercover targeting of the Black Justice campaigns would come out, or possibly should come out, from what I was doing. We've mentioned already, there was this anger side to me as well going on at the same time. So I had a lot of confusion of the feelings about whether or not they should know or they shouldn't know. But can somebody make sure that I'm actually going to be okay if it became knowledgeable that me, but it wasn't just me, I'd put the aspect of Trevor Morris, the actual black undercover officer as well.
So would it be fair to say that your concern at that time was that your cover would be blown?
Unfortunately, that's just me as a human being. My failing is it's me first. So there definitely was a concern for me, yes.
Did you speak to Bob Lambert about that?
Yes.
What was Bob Lambert's reaction?
Pretty much, nothing will come out. It's the SDS. And I can't begin to get there, the obsession with nothing from the SDS. He had his golden rule that nothing will ever come out from these. So he was very, very much against it.
Did you speak to DCI Edmondson about it?
Yes, but no disrespect to him. The management ability was, I put more faith in Bob Lambert, but yes, I did mention it to him. His was along the lines of a dismissive sort of, that nobody's ever going to find out of it. It's an impossibility. Nobody's going to find out of it. And at the time, sort of accused of paranoia. I think some of the statements that I've said here now, reflection on it, the thought what was maybe happening to me in the YRE camp, what might happen to me elsewhere, maybe that was heightened paranoia. So I was accused of being a bit over paranoid with regards to this coming. It couldn't come out.
Were you satisfied with that answer?
No, I wasn't.
Did you go up the chain of command?
Yes, I did.
The next level up is superintendent.
Yes.
Did you speak to a superintendent?
I attempted to, and the actual superintendent who come out was not the one I thought would come out. And the one he's not covered at all because he's given evidence here. The one I thought I was going to see was Superintendent Docker.
And which superintendent, when you say come out, does that mean the superintendent came to you?
Yes, sorry, to the SDS. I couldn't go into the yard. We were forbidden to go to the yard. So any meeting always had to be conducted either at Safe House or occasionally at Bob Lambert's house as well. So yes, he came out. And when he came out, it actually was HN86, which I knew that HN86 would definitely, it was a pre-gone pretty much conclusion that he would definitely vie with Bob Lambert, Keith Edmondson. Eric Docker, on the other hand, he's a person who, if you could convince him of something that was really fundamentally right, I think he had a different perception, a very high view of Mr. Docker. But I was unaware, the senior management seemed fluid. I was never quite sure who was in charge outside the branch. So when they actually said, and it was Eric Docker, I don't think giving anything away, he was ill, seriously ill at the time, and all of a sudden the next minute out comes HN86 to deal with it. But I'd already had run-ins with HN86 about my withdrawal. So me and him were not exactly on best speaking terms anyhow.
Did you meet HN86 with the knowledge of the SDS managers, Edmondson and Lambert?
They were there.
So the three of you meet.
Yes.
What is HN86's reaction?
It was quite a heated discussion again. I think they decided that I was becoming difficult and they took it, maybe there's a degree of truth into it, that actually I was reacting this way because I was coming off the unit. And if I was on the unit, then, I'd presumably be happy type thing. And it sort of got into this sort of, it's so difficult looking back on it. Were they right? But it felt to me I was trying to do it to make sure I was okay when I came off the unit. But I know I definitely was saying as well that if I stayed on the unit, I could manage the situation better by knowing what was going on.
How was it left at the end of that meeting? By which I mean, what did HN86 say he was going to do?
No chance whatsoever was this going to happen.
This being your existence as an undercover officer being declared to the inquiry?
Yes, as in that particular point, we weren't aware of who the inquiry chairman was going to be. It was just the fact that the inquiry was definitely happening. But me being me, I wasn't happy with that either. When I have an argument with somebody, it does tend to make sure I do the last minutes entirely, muck my entire life up. I tend to have that tactic. So I carried on and demanded to see the next one up, the line of command, and that was, I can say his name, that's Commander Pearce. But Commander Pearce, once again, is, as everybody knows, he's a former SDS officer, and he makes Bob Lambert's golden rule as flexible. Roger Pearce's it is concrete. There is nothing coming out about the SDS anywhere. Once again, I think it was a foregone conclusion, but I used the same meeting because Roger only came out one, to also deal with my other grievances, which was me coming off, not going on to the surveillance unit as well. So I actually used it as in one big meeting, sort of to clear everything up entirely.
If your concern was about being exposed, and you had been told by Bob Lambert, DCI Edmondson, and HN86 categorically that it wasn't going to come out, why did you need to go further up the chain?
It's because Roger Pearce, until that particular discussion, I held his view in high regard. So I wanted to speak to, had that mentioned some other, there seems a unified look at the SDS from the management's perspective. There wasn't within the branch. There were certain managers, I can even write down one for definitely, who actually disliked intently the SDS. They were aware from a management perspective the problems we had, and they disliked the SDS. It was almost they needed any excuse to almost try to close it down. So had one manager particularly had been there, I wouldn't have even raised it any further. So I felt by speaking to Roger that I could try as hard as I possibly could. But I also felt that because I'd raised it up to commander level, if in the event something did go wrong with regards to the subsequent named Macpherson inquiry, did find out about me, I felt, although I was aware nothing would be recorded, I felt that because I'd queried it enough with high enough, they would then be forced to look after me more had I not raised the issue.
And what were you positively asking for anything from Roger Pearce?
Yes, that basically that he is aware of my concerns, and if it turns into a public inquiry, that he needs to have a serious think how we're going to deal with our aspect of the SDS. I wasn't aware at the first conversation with Roger Pearce who the chair was going to be, but then in subsequent conversation, the conversation really lurched towards me, basically saying that the chair, you don't know who the chair are, say the chair is a multi-panelled from the community, which I know a lot of people would really like. I personally would not have asked for the SDS to be aware. I didn't want to tear the unit down. That wasn't my intention. It was looking after me, but I still was 100% committed SDS officer. So when it became aware that it was Sir William Macpherson, as a former SAS commander, whatever his career was, I don't entirely know, that to me is a person who is within the system that could understand the concept of secrets. So actually when I became aware it was him, I actually thought then we could have like an unofficial question to him. Within your remit, does it fall under your guise of us. And I didn't know anything about public inquiries. I've known more now than I ever want to know ever again. But I didn't really understand that there is so much secrecy capability within a public inquiry. I didn't even realise that. It just purely was. And somebody like the judge who's here, he's a man also who understands secrets. So if we were to say to him, look, this is, the judge himself can make the decision about this. And me, I am then protected. But actually, Trevor Morris is protected as well. And I didn't have the conversation with Trevor Morris, but I still had a very close bonding to him and a thought for him.
Can I just be clear? Once the identity of the chairman of the Stephen Lawrence inquiry had been announced, did you speak to any senior managers again about your protection?
Roger Pearce and Roger Pearce only. And I also run through Bob Lambert again, by then Keith Edmondson. Sorry, I'll slow it down. Bob Lambert for definitely. I had another chat with Roger Pearce, but that was connected with other issues. That wasn't just solely. I had returning problems in the unit that I went to, caused by me again. But I also had a chat with him about that. He wanted to have a chat with me about it. So I had a chat with him. I raised it then. So I then knew that, but that's later on. That's when I was back into the unit, which I was there March 98 onwards, so sometime after that. But Bob Lambert I'd raised when he came round to see me, that I was then aware of the chairman, the same idea. Roger Pearce. Keith Edmondson by then had retired, so I didn't speak to him. And I did not know the DCI HN 58. I didn't know him. I didn't know him. He was about a week there, so I didn't raise the issue with him either.
And what did you ask Detective Inspector Lambert to do anything?
I was, because I ended up having a discussion with Roger Pearce, it was evident that Roger Pearce and Bob Lambert had spoken about the issue. And I got the feeling this is almost sort of turning like a containment plan to make sure that they sort of quelled me down. And when I spoke to Roger Pearce, it was done on the basis, don't you worry about it, I know what your concerns are. And if you were to turn around to me now and say there actually is a piece of paper, that there was a secret meeting before the chair, it wouldn't have surprised me. I wasn't given a yes, I wasn't given a no, but I was certainly given an uncertain terms of, that's enough, this has gone as far as. But I was also told that and I don't know if my concerns were then met, and what they meant to me at the time was HN81 was in the inquiry looking out for SDS stuff, but I don't think so because he wasn't there enough. My feeling was that there would have been a special branch officer throughout the proceedings in the public inquiry, because this is pre-YouTube, you couldn't watch it, and they were looking out to see if there's any suggestion anywhere with regards to the SDS, because I was assured by Roger Pearce that if there was any concerns whatsoever, it would be dealt with and I would be looked after. So, and that was a guarantee from him. And I let it lie totally. I wouldn't have gone anywhere else. I would never left the branch. It's a ridiculous concept, because I was totally faithful to the SDS, but I was upset with them, but I was still totally faithful to them. But I had the feeling that I'd gone as far, and I felt I was all of a sudden, I was covered. So I was satisfied that I was covered.
And can I take it from your answers, you don't have actual knowledge one way or the other about whether the Stephen Lawrence inquiry was informed about your deployment or Trevor Morris's or HN81's?
Nothing whatsoever. But I would like to say, I don't think that, and at no stage did Roger Pearce then say to me, oh, whoever they are, you get confused with DACs, assistant commissioners or whatever. He didn't take it, he did not say to me he had taken out the branch either. I can't name anybody else he may have spoken to.
Commander Moss.
Yes.
Sat above Chief Superintendent Pearce.
Yes.
My understanding of your written evidence is you did not speak to Commander Moss.
Correct.
Was that because you were satisfied that you had the cover you needed from Chief Superintendent Pearce, or was it for some other reason?
About 9/10 that Roger Pearce had me covered, but Commander Moss was not one of those who was anti-SDS, but he didn't need another crisis if I was giving him one to really look at what the SDS was doing. So if Roger Pearce was higher than the other way round, Mr. Moss was below Roger Pearce, I would have not spoken to Commander Moss, or whatever it is, you get confused with the ranking structure, I would have gone to Roger. No, I would have felt I was being disloyal. He would have been, actually, now you said his name and you wanted me to write it down, that's what I would have had on a bit of paper. But I've also got another one who also I wouldn't have gone down. So it's me being loyal to the SDS, stretching as far as I can get. But Commander Moss, I think, may have had a different reaction to the unit.
Had you, up to this stage, been going to any annual reunions, not a Christmas party as such or anything like that, but any annual reunions of the SDS?
There is no such thing as an annual reunion.
In those days?
Yeah, there's no such thing. Do you want me to go a little bit further?
No. The reason
there's no annual, there's every 5 years. There's a total devoid of annual reunions. Well, there was no such thing.
There was a 5-year reunion?
There was even that. Do you want me to go there or not? So
well,
basically, when I was in the back office, it's the first time they had a reunion. So the 25th anniversary is when I helped do it with HN86. This is why I know a lot more officers, because as I was sending out the invites, me being like nosy intelligence gatherer, I was saying, oh, who's this then? And he'd give me the story of the officers that I was inviting and coming along. But that was the first reunion. There may have been earlier, 10th, but the HN86, he didn't say that. It was the 25th. Thereafterwards, it became a 5-yearly cycle.
What I'm exploring, Mr. Francis, is this. You say, you have said in the past that words to the effect you didn't trust Moss because he hadn't been in the SDS.
Did I say that?
This inquiry knows that Mr. Moss was one of the very first UCOs in the SDS and that he was head of the SDS in 1980.
Yes.
Can I take it that you did not know that at the time?
No, I was aware of it, but I think you're beginning to get the feeling that certain SDS officers done SDS work at different levels. And no disrespect intended to Mr. Moss, but he was regarded as a very light swimmer, almost somebody who didn't bother to get the swimming pool. So when he is looking at the SDS, he is looking from the perspective of a very light swimmer. Some of us who swam a little bit more deeper, or probably too deep for me personally. The criticism that Bob Lambert would lie and Roger Pearce would lie is that somebody like Commander Moss has not got a clue what the SDS basically really did.
Can I move now to the next stage of your exfiltration plan? There was a plan in place for you to go to Rhodes, wasn't there?
Yes, there was a plan to go to Greece, and then my final extraction would be in Rhodes with, at that particular point, an unknown cover officer.
And am I right to understand that in the result you did not go to Greece as part of your exfiltration strategy at that stage?
In one word, no.
And what you did do is you crossed the channel and made your way to Spain.
Am I allowed to go back, or do you just want a yes or no to that one?
Right. If you give me a yes or a no, and then we'll
yes,
explore
correct.
the detail.
Correct, totally correct.
Can you help us, first of all, with how it comes about that you do not go to Spain, but you cross the channel?
I did go to Spain. I didn't go to Greece.
Sorry, you didn't go to Greece. You crossed the channel.
Yes. The original plan was that I would be sowing this, the activists know this well-worn tale of upset in your life, that everything's collapsing and it's all going wrong. I couldn't feign depression and too much upset, but I had that it was going very, very wrong in my personal work life that was there. So I started to mute that I was leaving. Then I had a couple of people who, in the months to me leading up, basically expressed to me that what a jolly good idea it would be to coincide the summer holidays with us all going with you, sort of on a bit of a jolly. So then I'm trying to extract myself somehow to say I'd rather be by myself when I leave. So I hinted at the office to say, and it was a plan that I was definitely going to go to Greece by myself. I'd given up the school stuff I was going, but all of a sudden I had a couple of activists, which later turned to be 3, but they're people on the periphery of the activism, just basically friends in a better word that I had. And as we got closer to the extraction, my own feeling was this just didn't look right, that I'm saying I'm going, that these people wouldn't participate. I run this past the main person I always run thoughts by. It was obviously Bob Lambert. He has a degree of flexibility that basically said, yes, that seems all quite reasonable, that you're going to take your activists with you. And he says, sort of, what time period are we thinking about? I go, well, sort of about a month. There's a bit of a sharp intake of breath that he felt that was quite a long time, but it was only done from his perspective that from a managerial point of view, they have to provide, or they don't have to provide, they should provide supervision for that. He then took it up further, DCI Keith Edmondson, who sharp intake of breath as well, and his argument was exactly the same. You can't do that long because we can't provide you managed coverage. Me being then, I pointed out to him a number of other instances where I was aware that undercover officers had gone abroad, and the ones the SDS management's quite like, jolly, they were always there for, but I actually gave them proof, which I won't go into here. Well, there's one definitely HN1, Matthew Rayner, that he wasn't constantly supervised in France. There's other examples I won't go into. But I gave them a number of concrete examples pointing out that this wasn't quite correct. Once again, me being me, arced up, and this is all in the same period of time that we're having the other arguments, and HN86 came along, stamped down his authority again, but actually I was most upset. I was not that upset with HN86 because I almost knew he'd do it. I was actually more upset with Keith Edmondson because as the DCI in the unit, he'd then let me down twice. As the DCI in the unit, he should have insisted that he had done the preparation work. He'd actually gone out to the surveillance officers and said, do you mind Pete Francis coming on the unit? And they said, yes, we can have you. And he didn't insist enough on my behalf as the DCI. And then lo and behold again, the only reason I'm doing this elaborate off-plan, taking these people with me, is for the benefit of the unit, and the fact that their 4 weeks didn't align to you should have managers, but actually they don't always have managers out there. I actually felt that I was upsetting again HN86 and he wasn't looking at it. So then we get back to me and Bob Lambert agreed between us that I would take my own annual leave, so it was me taking my annual leave, and he would be the unofficial backup, the same as he was officially in Germany, like no help, because he's in a Bavarian hotel and I'm in a camp. So the same scenario, but he would be flexible from England, and he could get over quite quickly if it all went Pete Tong somewhere when I was abroad. So I felt there was coverage, and my level of coverage.
Can I
Yes,
just
sorry.
ask a couple of questions? Can I have sort of brief answers just to confirm I'm understanding?
So,
So you cross the channel in circumstances where HN86 has said you shouldn't.
correct.
DCI Edmondson's position is you shouldn't.
Let's one little bit. Keith Edmondson was very happy. He was just leaving the SDS. He was about to retiring, so he didn't give an expressive no. He gave a, I'll let Bob deal with it, and if it all goes tits up, we can have the new manager, HN58, when he comes in, deal with it, because I'm off, like D-Mob happy. So he knew-ish that I was going, but he managed to sort of say, look, I'm off now.
And D.I. Lambert is actively assisting you to disobey HN86's instruction.
I don't like that terminology. He was assisting me in me going against the wishes of the manager. I wouldn't say that Bob was necessarily. I think he's got enough problems without me giving him another one.
He knew you were going to disobey the instruction.
He did definitely know I was going to go, yes.
And he was saying that he would provide you with some form of cover if it went wrong.
Bob was you couldn't leave that same sort of thing in the incapable hands of Keith Edmondson, but you could leave that in the very capable hands of Bob Lambert. If I said somehow or other I've ended up in Marseille prison, Bob could sort it all out. He'd come up with a story for you to be able to help me to get out of it.
A good example of Mr. Lambert's flexibility.
Very much so.
Can we move to the other side of this equation with the activists? You crossed the channel with 3 fellow activists.
Sort of periphery, not a single member of militant, wiry, yesy type thing, but not like militant Labour people themselves. I never reported on these people.
Unless you definitely know that their names are already in the open in this inquiry, could you write them down?
Yeah. Then I know they're not. I know they're not in the inquiry because they're not there.
The chairman first.
And there's no surnames because I'm only guessing what their actual surnames were. There was an in your very bases.
Thank you very much. I think I can say this much openly, 3 males.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And what was their understanding of why they were travelling with you?
That we were off to have a jolly. They were aware, sort of ish, what was going on. That I'd borrowed my school van. I didn't say steal at any time because the school was closed. So the backstory is I pretended that I stole the school van and used that. But it wasn't stolen because the school was closed. So nobody was aware till the beginning of September when they opened the doors, got across, the van's gone. So it wasn't actually stolen. They were aware that I was very disgruntled with my work plan. During the time I met the first person I named very, very early on. We had the 3 of us. There was the camaraderie was based on martial arts, and also we were then into the music, the techno music scene and the house music scene. That's where my Peter Johnson had to become a rounded person. It's the activists. They were one area, but I actually had a very rounded character. So when people came to see me, there was other people who were not activists on the periphery. So we had a common reason. So it was this. Whoever said it before, the jolly I had in Bavaria. Take it from me, that was not a jolly. This was a severe jolly, a very enjoyable part. My departure that I was leaving.
So you're travelling in your cover vehicle.
Yes.
Do you keep in contact with the office or not?
No.
How are you funding yourself?
I have got from the SDS, I had an issued credit card in the name of Peter Johnson. I also had one on the school. And once again, Bob Lambert was very aware that I was going to use that credit card. But these are credit cards going back to the 90s. I think there was like a daily limit of about £50 or £100. But also, if he wanted to keep track of where I was, they could use it as an audit trail to make sure I was okay as well.
But the short answer is public money.
Yes, but if I put it towards it was my leave, it was my own time, it was my leave I was having, but yes, the Metropolitan Police was paying.
Were you taking any drugs at this stage with your activist companions?
Not necessarily when I was actually driving the van, but yes, during the course of our weeks away, but that is consistent with what I've been doing the entire 4 times. I wasn't sort of a drug head, occasionally a spliff, And the clubs, certainly like Bagley's, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, there'd be a tab, something like that, but nothing drastic.
Cocaine?
Sorry?
Cocaine.
I had cocaine, but not with it on this particular trip. I had cocaine twice. They were particular activists, that was their thing, just twice with the same people.
Did there come a time when somebody from the SDS came out to meet you?
Far later on, I had to make one call when I was abroad, and that's my ex-wife's birthday, which was in the summer holidays, so I was already left her. So I did the one courteous thing too. I actually bothered to ring her up on her birthday, and that featured. And that's where I got the call that Bob Lambert had been round to see her, and things were starting to. I don't know why Bob Lambert had gone specifically round, but I had to get in contact with him ASAP.
Can you help us with how long you had been abroad by this stage?
Just trying to remember, I should remember her birthday, but can I remember her birthday now? Yeah, give or take about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks. The other bit I would like to add in, Bob Lambert, that's something else he said to me, is don't worry about your family. I was concerned about my family. He actually agreed to go round. So I don't think this particular issue is my ex-wife ringing up again. I think Bob Lambert was doing what he said he would do, was occasionally pop round to make sure the family was all okay. But I only got the message because I'd rung her up on the birthday.
And if I understood it correctly, what she is saying to you includes give Lambert a call.
Correct.
And you did that,
yes,
did you?
at the time I knew his mobile number to ring him up directly.
And what did he have to say?
Things somehow or other leaked out, and the H&86 was not sort of best amused that I hadn't paid attention, but it sort of explained, it wasn't like you've got to come back now. It was like he was having difficult managing the situation, but I said to him that if I carry on, I will still get, as we agreed, to Greece, because the idea was to drop these people off because they're going to go back to normal life. I was going to carry on. The last thing I was going to say to him, right, well, I'm going to ditch the van, I'm going to go to Greece, contact from Greece, get picked up, go home. So as far as I was concerned, mission was still on. I was on the right way, but it wasn't a get home, come home now type thing.
Well, if it wasn't that, what was it?
A warning. It was sort of all going a bit bent. If there was any chance I could sort of speed it up, give us a ring, and would, at the he was still managing, but there seemed to be shifting sands. And Bob won't panic. He will not panic straight away.
Time to wrap it up.
No.
Well, just not instantly, but...
Yes, we're starting to get there, and he's not 100% sure he can keep it all going up till the thing.
And what did you do about that?
Just ignored it.
In terms of what you were doing with your activist colleagues, was there any political activity?
None whatsoever. Any
violence?
There was an incident. There was an incident in a campsite, but that was not necessarily us. But it wasn't a political one. It was just a group of people we had a bit of a punch-up with, but nothing drastic.
Crime?
Well, the crime I was technically committing was using the card, so they thought that we were all involved in crime. Occasionally, a couple of bits went missing on the service station when we turned up, but nothing drastic.
Now, that line of evidence arose from my asking you whether there came a time when somebody came out to see you.
Yes.
We've now got you. You've spoken to Bob Lambert. He's telling you he can't cover for you for much longer.
Yep.
What happens next?
I just carry on moodling along, but I was down to 1 by then. Another birthday, I had no other contact at all, was my mother's birthday, which is 10 days later. So I then ring up my mother 10 days later and speak to her. And my mother, who lived in Devon, had a call off my wife at the time saying, when you speak to Peter on your birthday, please tell him to get in contact with his manager. She might have even said Bob, because he needs contact. So then I rung up Bob, and that was an entirely different telephone conversation. it was, H86 had lost the plot. And there's something I know I can't mention, because I've been told I can't, but somehow or other H86 in his head had got in that I was with this person I can't mention, who I didn't know who it actually was. So he was saying, oh, we all think you're there, and I wasn't. But there was a real degree of urgency then for me to come home. So by then, I knew I couldn't get to Greece. I was about a week away from it. And I was upset, I was angry, because I put so much work, so much effort into it, trying to make the perfect off plan. And literally, the call was whenever, I can't remember what it was, but literally I turned round wherever I was. And the next day, I was angry, but the next day I actually sat down with myself and thought, well, you know, how is this going to end other horrifically? I was more, career-wise, I was more concerned still at that stage that I wanted to get to Greece to make the perfect off-plan that I'd planned. But I just thought, no, this career-wise, I've got to go back. So what I then did is to keep the trail up. I didn't put the school's credit card, I put my credit card, left it in a telephone kiosk with a PIN number on the back, in the hope that the credit card would be used a little while longer when I was out there. So it's about a £50 limit a day, £100, which in relation to some of the elaborate off-plans the SDS has cost the Met, this is quite a minimal one. And literally I turned the van round. I was on the beach in the outskirts of Barcelona and drove in one session all the way back to the SDS offices. But I had the mindset, and this is the first mindset I ever had for the SDS, if in the event I was like caught at the port coming back and there was a problem, I actually literally would just say, I'm an undercover police officer. And that's the only time. Just slight thing, me being me, I actually took, while we're talking about crime, I took a number plate off one van. I had a little Renault Extra 5 van, small little van. I took a number plate off one, it was similar looking little van for the front and a different number plate for the rear, to make it look like it wasn't an English vehicle returning, because the last thing I wanted was the activists would see my van when I'm driving back through London or anything like this. So I used that to get back, so it didn't look like it was an English van when it came through. And I actually got some stickers from some sort of garage that I stuck on the outside of the van to make the van look slightly different. I was still concerned that the activists might see me when I get back. But I'd already decided at the port, if it all went bent, I was actually the first time ever going to say, right, this is Bob Lambert, let him sort it out for you.
And can I take it you drop off the last activist companion at some point?
He's already gone. I dropped him off when it started. That was the warning with my when it was on my ex-wife's birthday. I got the feeling that it might be going wrong, but that's when I dropped him.
You aren't stopped at customs, you don't declare your real identity.
I wasn't even sure if they cleared the way, but I just went straight through, and then I arrived at the SDS offices in South London.
And would I be right to understand that, therefore, nobody did, in fact, have to physically come out to meet you on the continent?
No, I was met by two officers. One was John Webb, one was Bob Lambert. John Webb dealt with a van.
Where did you meet them?
I say at the SDS offices, that would have been very poor tradecraft, like a couple of streets away from the SDS offices in South London. It wasn't directly, I'm not going to park outside the offices. Near enough, John Webb took care of the van. Bob Lambert drove me home. And Bob Lambert then gave me a little bit of a spiel about how it all sort of unfolded. This other event happened simultaneously. But to this day, my ex-wife has sworn to me blind that she wasn't the instigator to say to Bob Lambert he's been away several weeks. I still don't know what the event was that led to Bob Lambert going to H86, and this all sort of unfolded. If everybody just kept quiet, I can't work out why I couldn't get to Greece.
So that is the end of that stage of your exfiltration. Am I right to understand that you then go on not too long after that, a 2-week family holiday to Spain?
there's a slight thing in before there. So that's beginning of September, whenever I came back. It might have been, I don't know, last week of August, beginning of September. I then had my SDS leaving due on the 27th of September. And so all the managers were there at that. I've submitted the card. And the reason I submitted the card is you'll see that none of the managers were saying anything about me detrimental in there. They all attended and said, what a great job. So all this sort of negative feedback I had afterwards wasn't there. But yes, you're correct. It wasn't immediately then. It was after my leaving due, which would have coincided with my children's half term. We went to Spain, and obviously they didn't really know that it was a family holiday, but I went exactly to where I dropped the credit card off. We didn't do it in one stop, but we went through it, and I went there, and I carried on the route going down that I would have done. So we spent 2 weeks, and I carried on writing postcards as though I was still where I was. And then so as far as the activists were concerned, because they would get feedback from the people I was in the van, so actually the trail carried on. But yes, I did that. Once again, that wasn't that was no money off them. I literally went back and carried on that trail by myself.
There's reference in the document to a further trip to Barcelona in December of 1997. Did you go to Barcelona?
That's the last contact. So I went back, like I'm saying, all this negative, he went mad, is all disobeying orders and all that lot. I then actually said, look, I feel that I would like to make that last bit of contact, give it a bit more time. And yes, I was fully funded to go back. But I didn't go back, obviously, as Johnson. He's gone, and when I went back with the van, the other side I would like to say is I obviously gave them my passport, one credit card because there was one that was missing, type thing. I gave them my full identity at the end. That was given. So I went back purely as Francis, but I'd done cards. I was thinking about doing a telephone call, because it's always more. But the telephone call, you never know where it might end up. Somebody might say, look, you shouldn't be by yourself for Christmas. We'll come over and see you for Christmas. So literally done happy Christmas cards, and that's my last ever contact with anybody.
So you come back on according to the documents, on Monday, the 15th of December, 1997, and that is the end of your deployment.
I never had any contact since.
Can we now go back to the leaving card you mentioned? So it's in Volume 1 at tab A8, 36029. As you say, lots of friendly comments, lots of praise, but the entry I would like to look at, please, is the one which is essentially top centre. If we could have that expanded, please. Sorry, the one above that. Thank you. Very difficult to read, but there's a reference to reservoir dogs at the top, and that presumably is a reference to your identity as Mr. Black.
Yes.
And then it goes on and ends, they're weary fuckers and they deserve to die. And that is a reference to the people you had been mixing with undercover, is it?
It is, and unfortunately that sort of language towards the activists, the feeling towards the activists was unfortunately quite common with regards to it. So it's not just here on the card.
Did it reflect your attitude at the time?
No, I'd never wish anybody to die, but certainly I don't know if anybody's ever really explained the term weary, but basically the weary is somebody who's exceedingly wearisome because you spend that much time with them. All they talk about is always God, it's always the same thing. So it's always the extreme left-wing politics. In everything, you know, you're having a meal, it's left-wing politics. You're watching the cinema, it's left-wing. It never stops. So yes, I certainly would have had that sentiment. Not about everybody, but certainly some of them. but I'd never wished anybody to die. Just if I'd actually submitted the whole card to you, the actual front of it was a picture of Darth Vader. So I actually had a full Darth Vader, so I was known as Mr. Angry. There's a couple of references to Angry. There's a picture of Darth Vader at the front of it as well. So I wasn't exactly a happy chap at the time. So.
And your habit of dressing in black was it?
Yes, unfortunately we're still here, but I hope to wear white after I've read the final report. I'll be dressing differently, hopefully.
Thank you. Can we now move into your post-deployment matters? First of all, could we have up from tab B37, sir, 747558. This is a file note. If we go over the page, we will see that it bears Bob Lambert's name, dated 18th of January 1998. If we go back to the first page, we'll see it says file note Howling Gale. That was your code name, wasn't it?
I was never aware of it. The first time I read it, I knew they were coming up with another way of trying to hide the SDS. So they'd come up with all these weird code names, like we were the Chizzers. So it's another way of trying to hide us, but I wasn't aware till I read this. They'd hilariously come up with this one for me.
And it's recording that at the top, first paragraph, on Thursday the 8th of January, he'd attended you at your home to have a discussion. Was that part of D.I. Lambert's following up on your deployment ending?
Yes, he'd done a follow-up. He'd obviously taken me home. Yeah, he was, good as gold. He made sure I got home when he picked me all up from the Spain thing, made sure I was all okay. Seen him at my leaving do, but this is the first time I then saw him after.
And then if we go over the page to the penultimate paragraph on the second page, called asked HG if he would chat to new recruit HN60 about tradecraft, etc. Did so on the 12th of January. Very useful, HN60 going to see him again before starting. Do you recall speaking to HN60 before HN60 deployed?
Yes, and in my statement, I muddled it up. I thought that was originally HN81, but HN81 I saw earlier. Before that, so I'd muddled it all up. But yes, I do remember.
Yes, I'll come to HN81 in a moment.
I did see him.
Sticking with HN60.
Yes.
Did you say anything to HN60 about sexual activity undercover?
Yes.
What did you say?
The same as I said to every single SDS officer that I spoke to. I think I nearly spoke to everybody, with the exception of Codan Christine Green. I didn't speak to her about it, the female aspect I didn't know anything about. Chap's exactly the same. Don't fall. Basically, what I've been told. Don't fall in love. That's what I've been said. Avoid. There's always this cautionary tale of avoid if possible, because there's always this idea that you may not fall in love with them, but maybe they do. So yeah, do avoid if at all possible. Be careful about certain pinch points. Pinch points are, for example, if you have activists stay at your house. Be careful if you've got people staying. There's more chances the parties go into the early hours. So if you're around somebody's house, you can extract yourself. But if they're around your house more often, that's another pinch point. Other things I would have said to him, I definitely would have passed on the advice I was given with regards to condoms. I definitely would have given the advice with regards to use your own condom. Basically, I did not say it wasn't allowed, because even at that stage, when I was speaking to him in 1998, I was never told it wasn't allowed even at that stage. So the same advice I was given. I don't think I had a lot more to add into it. I think, I certainly, I wouldn't have said, oh, and by the way, when I was out, I had sex with people as well. But I never said that. But it's certainly, once again, it's these evident conversations. You've got somebody who's giving advice about sex. Well, why would he be giving that advice unless he's knowledgeable? So there's nobody on the planet who knows what I did sexually when I was undercover. But once again, I was somebody who was talking from the position of experience, and that was evident when I was talking to him. But I'd say exactly the same conversation I had with Mark Jenner, Jim Boyling, whoever else I can name.
Can you help me with the precise calibration of the message? Was it, you can do it as long as it doesn't get serious, or is it, don't do it, and whatever you do, don't let it get serious?
No, it was, if you do, try to avoid it, because there's problems from it.
It being what?
Having sex with somebody. Try to avoid having sex with somebody, because it can lead to something. But if you do end up, this is there. But no, I didn't say don't. I wasn't aware that was the actual instructions. I would have also mentioned don't be an agent provocateur and everything else I've mentioned over the last few days. And the reason Bob Lambert asked me to see it is, at the time, out of the tradecraft, there was certainly some officers with some rather wonky tradecraft, for example, Mark Jenner turning up with his own credit card and things like that. And I was regarded as somebody who had a very, very high tradecraft. So, I'd never, ever ring up, when we had mobile phones, I'd never, ever ring up the offices with mobile phones, things like that. So I was regarded as somebody who had a very high tradecraft.
Did you speak to HN15 Mark Jenner before he deployed?
Yes.
And can you help us with what advice you gave him about sexual relationships?
Exactly the same as that. There's no difference. I didn't have anything different to say. Mark, because he was early on, maybe I didn't mention about the people being overnight in your flats. I don't know how many people I'd had by then. I can't quite remember when Mark was out in relation to me. But
Jim Boyling?
yes.
And what was the message to Jim Boyling? give you a moment to read that, but you will see that this is where you appear in the document in that second paragraph.
Okay, I've read the second. Do you want me to read it all or stop? I'm down
I think
to
I
leaving
can
them
ask you
present.
at this stage, do you have any recollection of this?
This is all this, yeah, he wasn't doing too well in the SWP type conversation.
I mean, it reads as if you're being consulted by management about where might HN81 be usefully employed if the SWP is going nowhere. Is that fair?
Fair, yes.
And it appears that you are saying that if he's going to move, there is no better reason to leave the SWP at the moment. Is that fair, or am I missing a nuance?
I'm sort of trying to get round to this where I am. I think there was a mention, it might have been like whether or not he'd go towards the anarchists or something. It's within this time. I know definitely somewhere the anarchists popped up with him as well, which, yeah, I think Bob's enthusiasm wasn't that great either. And I think you can see that in there, that he wasn't listening that much to Bob either. Between the two of us, we couldn't quite work whoever recommended him to be on the SDS, basically. But the anarchist, class war featured in there as well, but I'm not 100% quite sure about the timelines, but that certainly would have been before he came out to see me.
Would it be fair to say, insofar as you are involved in this debate, that there was some uncertainty as to where HN81 could most usefully be deployed?
With the word questionable about the usefulness of him overall, yes.
Could we go to, if you want to read the next paragraph?
No, unless you want to ask me a question.
No, I want to go to the bottom, to part 2, please, and in particular the last 2 paragraphs of part 2. You don't feature again in part 2, but towards the bottom it says, JW, that's John Waugh, returned today and after being...
John Webb.
I'm sorry?
John Webb, not John
Sorry,
Waugh.
John Webb. Apologies. John Webb returned today and after being appraised of the situation suggested that HN81 could combine such a loose enviro role with a more general public order community role in the South London Brixton area, much in keeping with our earlier discussions with HN81, which included such things as LDMG. This seems a good suggestion, but it is one which would require a lot of initiative from HN81 and 51, as stated above. He has shown little of that recently. JW and BG, that Bernard Greene?
Yes, sorry, yes.
We'll discuss all of this with HN81 tomorrow, and much will be gauged from his reaction to the idea. And so it appears that what's going on is a dialogue which has culminated in a suggestion that some sort of general public order community role in South London, Brixton area might be the best place for him. Were you aware of that at the time?
Could be wrong. I actually thought there was a mention of the actual SWP in South London. I get this, but for whatever reason, I've got the SWP in South London. I'm sure he held it up in 2 branches of the SWP. But could be wrong. But yes, South London definitely. So he obviously was first North London. Get him away from that area. Still a bit risky because people do cross things. But yes, send him down there.
Can we take that down now, please? Can we move to the question of the Stephen Lawrence inquiry's public hearings? They begin in March 1998. You've mentioned today in your oral evidence, and you've mentioned in writing in the past, that your understanding was that there were special branch officers keeping an eye on proceedings. And today you mentioned for the purposes of ensuring the security of the SDS. Is that right?
That's a part of it. It's not the special branch officers do to go to court proceedings in the public galleries for quite a lot of events, including when activists are in court. I've done it myself when I was on C Squad as well. But certainly from that, there would be that additional bit to look out for the SDS, but I don't think that was their primary. I think their primary is the branch wants to know what's going in the public inquiry, if it affects them directly.
You've also said in writing that officers from Special Branch were passively observing and profiling all of the public that attended.
That's what I was made aware of.
Can you help us with the basis for your knowledge of that?
This was the conversation, again with Bob, that things are being watched on my behalf, but the profiling people attending something like this or the courts, standard special branch, I think they might not be doing it public inquiries anymore, but certainly at that time, if it affected the policing, knowing who's going is standard special branch work.
So is this something you're thinking this must have happened because it's what Special Branch normally does, or do you have actual knowledge that it did happen?
I don't think Bob Lambert would have told me if it wasn't done. So it was him reassuring me that the special branch was in there and they were also looking out for anything regarding the SDS. It's Bob's reassurance of me that what I'd said is actually being looked out for.
You have in the past suggested that people were there monitoring to see if there was any mention of your name or any other SDS undercover deployments. To do that, the Special Branch officers would need to know at least the cover names of SDS officers, wouldn't they?
No, I think if there was a hint of anything undercover, the word name is probably a little bit too far, but basically if there was a hint, a whiff, anything at all that undercover policing was somehow involved in this, you know, you just needed one of the, I don't know, even one of the activists to turn around a question and say, oh, I think Special Branch were monitoring me or whatever. But yes, depends on who was in the public gallery. If it was a former SDS officer doing Special Branch work or somebody trusted, yes, but invariably they're just looking for anything that says it's undercover.
Can I move now to the question of the OCU Commander's Commendation?
Yes.
We've got a document which writes this, which recommends you for an OCU Commander's Commendation. It's at tab B41, sir. It's MPS 0002243. And if we could go to page 3, please. Now, this is the recommendation for the commendation, but am I right to understand that this commendation was made, and it was made to you at the time in the late 90s?
I was not given that commendation, no. I received that commendation in an envelope on the last day that I was part of Metropolitan Police by somebody who is a very low Metropolitan Police civilian employee when I handed back my warrant card. The Special Branch did not give me my own commendation at all. This led to a later, rather, rock as well.
I see.
Would
Would there normally be a formal presentation?
proper, yeah, you're invited in, your wife's invited in, and you have it by the commander giving it to you.
Why didn't that happen?
Because I was already sick. This was done, the date it was done, it's then, right, the commanders agreed to it. I didn't quite clock the date, but whatever the date was, right, I'm going to give the commendation, a certain amount of time need to set up, you're then given notice, you then go in, by which time I was already sick. I'd actually gone out. I went ill health 27th of September 1999, 2 years to the day that I'd returned back from the SDS.
How did it make you feel being given the presentation in an envelope rather than formally?
Yeah, it sort of added on to the whole I wasn't treated well. It didn't help. Didn't help at all.
Give you a moment to refresh your memory as to what the commendation.
No, I know it. Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
My questions are more about what isn't in that in that commendation. There is no mention there of the Lawrence family or the Stephen Lawrence campaign. Given what you've told us about your taskings, can you help us as to why there is no mention of the Lawrence family or the Stephen Lawrence campaign there?
I think because the public inquiry was already called by then, I don't think they would have wanted the word Stephen Lawrence anywhere near there once the public inquiry is called. If the event had been presented earlier to me, say when I'd come off the unit in 1997, like 2 years earlier, they may have put it on, but they also even then may have been reluctant. But I can certainly understand their reluctancy with a public inquiry running at the same time.
There is no mention of any family justice campaign or any racial justice campaign in this document. Why is that?
Once again, I'd put that down to the Macpherson inquiry. I don't think it is. I know it's to do with the Stephen Lawrence, but I think the issue with regards to black justice, it was wider than just the Stephen Lawrence campaign. I know it's the primary focus, but it was bigger than just him.
Did anybody say anything to you about the absence of these matters from your commendation?
Saying I got it in an envelope, I couldn't talk to anybody, and then when I was presented it later on, I did go back to the yard and have it presented, but that's several years later, but 10 years later. Nobody mentioned anything then, and I was just grateful to get my commendation finally presented to me. But once again, that was a 10-year battle for me to get somebody to present me my own commendation as opposed to give it to you in an envelope.
Sir, I'm about to move to another topic. Would now be a convenient moment to take the morning break?
Yes, it would. 15 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I want to move next, Mr. Francis, to the question of your own sexual activity undercover, starting first with what you describe in your witness statement as a joke about taking one for Queen and Country in connection with Lewis. And you will recall your witness statement talks about the joke being made. Was it by 86 or 67?
86.
And was there ever any question of your having to have sex with someone you were not sexually attracted to?
No, none whatsoever. And he'd done it, basically this jolly jape, as he would describe it, was because we found out through the SDS that Lewis was openly gay, and I was going to go to try to be alongside him. So that's why that joke, sort of putting it into context, it just wasn't a random thing he said. We found out, the intelligence was he was highly likely, and that's where the circumstances of him saying it. But certainly HN67 was also present, and he thought it was funny as well. I just sort of dismissed it as a comment that HN86 was prone to make occasionally. He had a sense of humour that he found more funny than a lot of other people found funny.
A homophobic joke.
He just finds that his whole sense of humour, including homophobic jokes, he had quite a repertoire.
Were you sexually attracted to the women you slept with undercover?
Yes.
Did you ever say anything in any circumstances to HN81 to the effect that you told visiting activists that they had to sleep with you?
No, but I did have, and I mentioned it, there were these pinch points that I discussed with him and the other officers, that you always, when you have people around your houses, that's something to be wary of. So that was the conversation. What he then goes on to add into it, I certainly never said to him. But it makes sense where he may have got a bit of the conversation. He obviously spends the first 12 lines of his statement saying how he can't remember anything properly. But all I do know is I never said the further bit about how I almost blackmail people to sleep with me to stay round.
Could we have from tab B63 748733? An MPS number. Thank you. This is a witness statement produced by Kirsty Masters, who is the DCI, or I'm not sure whether she's a DI or a DCI, but one of the police officers running the Operation Hearn investigation. Okay. And what she's doing in this statement is explaining the evidence that had been gained by Operation Hearn relating to your sexual activity undercover.
Okay, it's obviously the first time I've seen this document. I wasn't aware of it.
It summarises various snippets of evidence, but if we go over the page to page 4 and to paragraph 15, the name of Judy Bashan was provided to Operation Hearn by the former SDS undercover officer known as N104, that's our HN104, in interviews conducted with him over 3 days between the 12th and 14th of August 2013. During interview, HN104 stated that an activist HN104 was close to whilst deployed had told HN104 that Judy Bashan a full-timer within a group in which Francis had been deployed, had been involved in 2 heavy relationships, one of which was with her husband, who was also a weary, SDS terminology for activists, and the other with a male called Pete. Bichon had apparently been seen at a party with Pete. This was understood by HM 104 to have been Peter Francis. HM 104 reported this information at the time to an SDS administrative sergeant who said words to the effect of, "Oh yeah, that's Pete's bird." Did you have a sexual relationship with Judy Bichon?
No, not whatsoever.
Can you assist us as to why a sergeant in the SDS might have said, "Oh yeah, that's Pete's bird"?
So, if I could possibly break it down, I've got no idea who HM 104 is. Am I allowed to find out who that is?
Carlo Saraki.
I've never met the bloke in my life. I just want to, how he's got it later on.
Yes.
It's later on, right, okay. And the reporting sergeant, the administrative sergeant that he refers to?
I'll have to check that.
Okay.
I think I know, but I don't want to.
Well, no, because I think if you've done an administrative sergeant, I might then be able to work out to think, well, maybe that's how the conversation came about.
We think it might be, and I don't want to mislead you, but we think it might be Sergeant Tiddy.
Once again, somebody that I've never met. So I can't give him something and I haven't met the other one.
The woman concerned denies any sexual relationship with you as well.
Well, so she should do, and I'm very pleased. They say, what do they say? Something ridiculous here. She had a close relationship, it's a heavy relationship with one of which is her husband. So I'm very pleased she had at least one heavy relationship with her husband. But I've got no idea where this came about. To possibly leap forward, but how 2 unknown people in a different time era, the SDS are talking about my alleged sexual relationship is, first, I never spoke to anybody specifically what the relationships were that I had, the 2 with the activists that were there. But with regards to Judy, when I reported on her and spoke about her, she was one of the few people that I wouldn't have referred to as being a weary, as in being wearisome to be around. She was exceptionally pleasant. She was very, very intelligent. Good conversation that was more rounded. So when I was in the SDS reporting on her, and we didn't only just do a written report, would speak to our managers about people that they could understand the people. I may have said something complimentary about her that I liked her and I thought she was generally good. And if somehow or other that's led to that, I'll 100%, 1,000% say that this lady's, I had no sex with this lady under any circumstance.
Thank you. Can we take that down now, please? Can we go to B79 726 970, which is your Officer A statement again? Could we have page 22, please? Could we have paragraph 105? This starts, in the course of my work, I engaged in a number of sexual affairs, thereby betraying my wife and my marriage. I tried to rationalize this by the truth of the situation, that these liaisons meant nothing emotionally and that I was cynically using the sexual relationships for the purposes of gaining intelligence and information. I accepted this as part of my job, but again, the internal conflicts at this setup were considerable. The SDS management knew that I was behaving in this way and accepted that it was necessary in order for me credibly to continue my excellent work as an undercover operator. You have since said that you had 2 one-night stands, and I would like to be absolutely clear with you now How many women did you engage in sexual activity with in your undercover identity?
2 with activists, and then people that I met in social situations, 5, I believe.
5 plus 2 or 5 in total?
2 plus 5.
Of the 2 who were activists, the first one, I don't want you to say anything that might identify the woman. Was it literally a one-night stand, or was there a build-up to it?
This is why the word sexual affairs was used. It was a one-night stand, as in it was one-off sex, but both the people, without getting anywhere near their identities, were known to me, and I'd known them for a period of time. And when we were writing the statement, it was felt that a one-night stand, which I would consider the other 5 were, that was the category of a one-night stand. I don't even think I actually know the name of a couple of the other ones, not even their first name, let alone anything else. Whereas these other 2, I know who they were, and I knew them.
Sticking with the first woman, would she have regarded there to have been the development of an emotional relationship before the one night of sex?
No.
The second woman, was it literally a one night stand, or was there an emotional dimension as well?
No, the same. They were both without, because I'm taking as much care as what we are over the anonymised officers. Both were in social situations involving partying and an end to a good evening.
Now, the 5 women who were not activists, why did you have sex with them?
Purely in the social circles that I was in, it was just part of the nights out that I was involved in. So I went out literally every Friday and Saturday night while I was deployed in a lot of different social situations. You met a lot of people. Sometimes there was light recreational drugs involved, sometimes there's alcohol, sometimes just dancing. So just the situations I was in, and one of them was one of those pinch points that I mentioned. I had some periphery activists staying in my flat, and one of the encounters was that as well.
Well, I may need to explore that a little bit more.
Please.
It's quite easy not to have sex, not to have a one-night stand with somebody, isn't it?
It wasn't for me. I'd never been faithful my entire life that I was married.
You are a police officer on duty, undercover.
I would regard it as I had given all my police stuff, including my warrant card, that was locked away from me. I was undercover as a special branch officer, and I was off duty on all of the occasions, because I was only ever on duty the same day, every single day, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The SDS did not pay you anywhere near the overtime that you actually had. I was on every single day that I was on from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And none of these encounters happened in the early evening.
Were you really thinking like that at the time?
I was in character. It didn't make any difference at all.
At the time, you are in character because you are a deployed undercover police officer.
But if you were to pull my duty states and those particular points, I was on from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and you said I was on duty. So if we are saying I was a police officer, technically I would have actually been off duty as a police officer at 8 p.m. onwards.
From the point of view of the women concerned, they were having sex with you and they had no idea that you were an undercover police officer?
Absolutely. And none of what I'm trying to do, if we've gone quite a way into it, am I trying to justify any of it? I take full responsibility. I won't justify it. It was wrong, should never have happened, and I won't try to justify it, just trying to say what position I was in.
What I am exploring is, are you, with the 5 non-activists, having sex with them for your own sexual gratification?
The same as every time. I've always been unfaithful beforehand, but these people, as I'm saying, I've got struggled to remember the name of 2 of them. I'm not even sure they knew anything more than just Peter.
And were you actually thinking in terms of, am I off or on duty, or were you thinking, I'm having a night out, I have an opportunity to have sex, I shall take it?
No, I was just responding to that. You said that I was on duty. You're the one who said that I was on duty. I was just actually saying technically I was off duty, but when I was Peter Johnson, I was never off duty until I was home again. But the hours well exceeded what I was paid. It was 4 hours every single day.
So can I take it, it never, the propriety of what you were doing, or lack thereof, never crossed your mind at the time?
No, with this implied consent that this was almost expected to take place from the management. And had the order had been that I couldn't have sex undercover, I wouldn't have had sex undercover. I'm very sure had I'd gone home, I wouldn't have gone home. I would have gone to a pub or club or something like that, still had sex with somebody, but that then would have been as Peter Francis. I just was not a pleasant person at that point. I had no concept of when I was married to somebody that I should be faithful. I've got horror stories involving not just this. I just was not a faithful husband.
With the 5 non-activists, did you always use a condom?
Absolutely.
Your own condom?
Absolutely.
Because of the advice you'd been given?
100%.
As to advice that you should try and avoid sexual relationships, the advice that you've told us you gave others, would it follow that you did not follow your own advice so far as these one-night stands were concerned?
No, I followed my advice with regards to the activists. I didn't regard the non-activists exactly the same. It was the potential where I was, that people I was basically spying on, that would cause me difficulty in my role. And it's the other way round. When I actually had the sex when the other people, that was a consideration I took into account. I was thinking, well, there is no technical comeback for Peter Johnson, because this is just literally going to be that one-night stand.
So moving to the 2 activists, why do you say you could not avoid having sex with them?
Because I've been a long time in that environment playing somebody who was up for inconsequential relationships, and the circumstances of both at a party. I was in a position, I was definitely attracted to them. I'm hoping that people were attracted to me. And the time they would then know that I had sex with them. I don't know who else they spoke to, but that for me then meant that the role I was portraying was accurate, because there was no comeback, there was no chance of relationship in both circumstances.
What had you said and done beforehand that gave the impression that you would be up for casual sex?
I think if you get to know people enough of a long period of time, you gauge people that are around you, and through conversations or actions, that's would have been very apparent. This wasn't just a one-off meet. Hi, this is me. This is what I'm here for the evening. These people got to know you over a period of time.
With the first woman, who initiated sexual contact?
I would have thought it's jointly. I can't remember making a specific, old word, move on somebody.
With the second woman, the same question.
Yeah, the second one, there was a longer period, sort of a bit of more flirting from technically both sides, but it has been mentioned already, so I'm not going anywhere, but this person was married. So I was in a position to flirt a little bit more with a person and in return as well, without me thinking actually the person was going to cross the bridge over because that person was married. So there's a little bit more flirtation compared to the other one.
From you?
From me, but from the other person as well.
But initiated by you and reciprocated?
I can't remember who initiated it. It happened.
Did you talk about either one night stand amongst your activists?
One of them, yes.
Why did you do that?
Because some other people were aware what had happened.
And why did that mean that you talked about it?
Because they talked about it to me, and as in like it had happened type thing. But no, I didn't go out and boast or anything like this. It's the circumstances of it happening. But we're getting into areas that I'm concerned if I go further, because I think both women have got the rights. I don't give anything away.
With the second woman?
That was the second woman, I thought.
Sorry, with the first woman?
No, it wasn't the same. No, sorry, that's the first woman. The conversation was known. That's the way around it was.
If you weren't talking about it, at least actively talking about it, can we take it that you did not do this for the purposes of enhancing your cover legend?
No, the first one, the ones that were talking about it was a sort of an enhancement. I didn't sort of make it obvious this is what's going to happen and then people know about it. But it certainly added to my story. And the same activists were out with me when I had, not all the time, but the activists were there on occasion when I had sex with other people, and they were then aware that that is what I was portraying. That's for the non-activists. They also, we were out, I was saying it's this promiscuity with no moral judgment on it, but the people I were with, the chaps I was out, we were out in the evening, they were also very promiscuous as well. So they saw the other ones more than they did the activists.
Were you doing it to enhance your cover?
Secondary to me, it was, I can't deny it was enjoyable, but I'm saying as somebody who had done this through the entire time I was married.
Did either of the one-night stands that you had with activists assist you to extract intelligence for the purposes of your job?
Directly, no, but it is an element of trust. You just have people that you trust more potentially because you've had a sexual encounter with them. So it wasn't a direct, that wasn't the intention. It was me first in the cover, but my credibility is definitely enhanced. It's the true story that I'm portraying with an action of who I'm actually portraying. Once again, trying not to justify anything, what I'm doing, I'm explaining.
So coming back to the words in paragraph 105 of your Officer A statement, I was cynically using these relationships for the purposes of gaining intelligence and information, is a long way from the whole truth.
So I'm saying in 2003 there was anger with it all there, but it was part of me within my cover who I was portraying. So it allowed me to gain the intelligence information. If I wouldn't have had the sex with the people, I don't know, do you upset somebody, do you offend somebody? Because there obviously was some sort of mutual attraction. You then try and, if I stopped, how would I then explain to the person that I obviously like, but I'm not going to have sex with you because I'm single and I'm up for sex?
Well, I think you've answered that question already. If you said if you'd been ordered not to have sex, you wouldn't.
But I would have come up with something else.
You would have found some way of avoiding it.
Well, better. We would have forced the management to come up with something like these decoy women that was suggested, and that was there. You'd have somebody real. You can come up with a story for a short period of time. You can't come up with a story when you meet somebody week in, week out for 4 years.
And I appreciate that ML meetings in Hackney, there's not much of the James Bond about those. But was there something of the James Bond about the way in which you, and as we now know, your colleagues, were having sexual relationships with women in their undercover identities? Was there a feeling that because you were undercover, you could behave like that?
I wouldn't put anything in the category of James Bond type scenario. Everything was not James Bond that we were doing. The vehicles, the missions, the overseas things, the glamorous locations, the women's, everything like that. That wasn't us. But I think there definitely is something, maybe more slow horses currently than what it is James Bond, that where we were, we felt we could do that, but I don't think it's a James Bond. I don't think anybody for 1 minute imagined they were James Bond. Well, I certainly didn't.
Was there an element that the normal social constraints didn't apply when you were undercover?
I'd agree with that. Plus, to my detriment as well, is I wasn't a particularly nice person with regards to the sanctity of relationships if you're in a proper relationship.
Did you tell any of your managers about any of the 5 non-activist women with whom you had sex?
No.
Why not?
Not necessary. I had my briefing, what I was allowed to do, and all as far as I was concerned is as long as I didn't walk in and say I've fallen in love with somebody, or she's fallen in love with me, or worse, I'm moving around with somebody, I'm going to live with somebody because, that's my cover, which I've heard other officers do. That's when I would have thought the absolute panic buttons would have gone off. But me personally, I didn't feel it was necessary. I felt I had instructions from one set of management, that's earlier H&86. The next management was there. So I'm saying, can't go into it. Keith Edmondson wasn't exactly anti-sexual relationships either.
Was there any requirement to report one-night stands?
Absolutely not.
Moving to the 2 activists, did you tell any manager about either of those women?
No.
Why not?
Same reason, exactly the same reason. It wasn't turning into a relationship. It didn't turn into a relationship. If I somehow ended up suddenly getting myself into a relationship, I would have seen, as per usual, I would have sat down with Bob Lambert and asked him where I was going. But as far as I was concerned, I had a clear instruction. The extension is don't fall in love. But as far as I was concerned, the clear thing is do not have a longer term relationship.
So coming back to paragraph 105, the SDS management knew that I was behaving in this way and accepted that it was necessary in order for me credibly to continue my excellent work as an undercover operator. Can we take it then that your managers did not know any of the specifics?
But the advice they'd given me, I'm sure they thought I was taking. So it's an implied that they knew what I was up to without me necessarily spilling it out for them. I'm saying this particular statement, my head was in a very different position because, for example, now if I look back betraying my wife and my marriage, I was doing that from day one. It wasn't the SDS who'd done it. But at the time, I was still married And I actually thought this is going to go to court. My then wife was going to be sitting there, and I'd have to explain to her that actually I was never faithful to her from before we were married, let alone when we were married.
I just want to explore that a little bit more. If the advice was to avoid sexual relationships, if at all possible, and you hadn't told them, why would they think you were having sex undercover?
Because I was then giving the advice to every single SDS officer to do what I was told.
But doesn't that amount to they would have known that you might have been, if in your judgment it was unavoidable?
Yes, but nobody ever called me up or nobody ever questioned me on it.
And the reality was you were having sex in circumstances which were avoidable.
With the exception, like I said, I was betraying somebody, and I think there's a limit to what you can say, that I am a free interest in sex but no relationships, and I know these people week in, week out for 4 to 5 years.
When you made your Officer A witness statement, I appreciate that you were in the course of litigation with your police force, but was, to your knowledge, was there any reaction to the fact that you made a signed witness statement explaining that you were having sexual relationships undercover?
I was certainly not made aware of anything. There was no, oh, I've said this and there's any comeback. Or say, for example, the solicitors who were using it, they then said, oh, because of what you've said, we now need you to speak to this because this is being referred on. Because at that particular time, if the complaints had spoken to me or something like that, I think I was that angry and upset. If the complaints had have seen me, my loyalty, the SDS by then had been stretched beyond breaking, and I'd already gone here.
But the situation is certainly not, oh my goodness, this is a confession of serious professional misconduct. We must act upon that and investigate Mr. Francis.
No, and the actual solicitors I was using done a lot of work on behalf of the Metropolitan Police. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but there's Russell Jones and Walker, who were known at the time to do the work of the Metropolitan Police extensively. And so I would have thought if it was upsetting the Metropolitan Police's solicitors, they would actually turn around and have investigated it further. But no upset at all.
Can we take the document down now, please? You were asked in the course of the dispatcher's interview in 2013 whether the women would have consented if they'd known who you were, and you said they probably would not have consented.
Sorry, I should have said they definitely wouldn't have consented, and I apologise for that. That's wrong.
Can we move now to your knowledge of the deceitful sexual activity of other SDS undercover officers? And can we start with a passage from your interview with Mr. Ellison? It's at tab B84, sir. It's a UCPI number 3262. Page 51, please. Lines 11 to 13. Basically, I, as opposed to some of the SDS officers, extract myself very well. I didn't have women being rung up from Heathrow Airport saying I'm leaving you. They were never told I'm coming back to see you. If I stop there, being extremely careful about anonymity, women being rung up from Heathrow Airport saying I'm leaving you. Which officer or officers are you saying made a call from Heathrow Airport to say, I'm leaving you?
Whether or not it's right or otherwise, that's the scenario I was given. That is not anonymised at all because it's in all the papers. That was John Dines in relation to Helen Steele, but I don't know if any of that was actually right. That was just one of the versions I was given of something that he did. But what I was trying to explain, probably not very well, is that other officers had not done, obviously, what I was told expressly not to do, and that is to have longer-term relationships.
Can we take that down now? You have said in your witness statement to this inquiry that it was evident from conversation that Jim Boyling was involved in sexual activity, but you didn't know about the children.
No.
Can you help us, first of all, with when did you first appreciate that Mr. Boyling was involved sexually with people undercover?
Sometime when he got divorced from his wife, and I thought it was quite a strange one, that the fact that Jim was getting divorced and he was still staying on the SDS, and whenever it was, I can't exactly, but there's certainly a conversation that I was aware that he was having sex, but I didn't know anything specific. I certainly didn't know a name. I didn't know it was a longer-term relationship aspect to it.
Can you help us at all with where and in whose company you learned this?
It just would have been one of the safe houses, Central London, West London OP, but I don't think there was any other witness to it. I think it's just me and Jim having a conversation.
Are you able to help us with whether anybody else knew that Mr. Boyling was involved in a sexual relationship in his undercover identity?
He wasn't that close to me. So if he was going to confide into anybody, I would have put it into his fellow animals, which I would have put as predominantly HN1. If he had a sounding board, I would have thought that would have been HN1, but this is speculation.
I don't want you to speculate.
Apologies then. No idea. He talked to me about it, but whether or not that's because I'd already mentioned relationships, as in my version of what you can and can't do, so that had been breached. But if there was anybody, that's who I would have thought he would have talked to.
Was there any open discussion in the office about Mr. Boyling's sexual activities undercover?
I never heard a single open discussion about anybody other than historically with regards to Mike Chitty and Rick Clark. Historically, I didn't hear a single discussion about anybody specifically, an open discussion.
Were you given the impression that Mr. Boyling had had a single sexual relationship undercover or more than one?
No, I couldn't qualify that. He talked about having sex. I didn't burrow down. I didn't think it was for me to burrow down. And I can't remember if it was for him, but I certainly, as my state answer to almost everything that was slightly complex, I would always say, it's almost inevitable what I said, is go and speak to Bob. Bob's the one who sorts your problems out, type thing.
Is that because he was flexible?
He was extremely flexible.
Was it known that he had had sexual relationships undercover?
Well, the fact he told me about the condom, I had a very good inkling that he did, but Bob certainly on the unit was not boastful. So he wasn't a boastful person, so I never heard it that way. But the advice he was giving me, I certainly felt it came from knowledge as opposed to he had heard it.
James Thompson, you have said that you recall knowing from general chat at the SDS flat that he was having sex undercover, but we never discussed specifics. can you help us with when this general chat at the SDS flat occurred?
I think can't recall exactly, sometime West London, Central London OP, but it was, James came in late for me, sort of quite the end of it all. But him, the way he was, if you're going to get anybody to sort of the James Bondy type thing, because I was aware of him working on film sets as this runner. I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing that. So there was more of a glamorous type. If anybody was in that sort of area, that would be James. And so the conversation that I can recall was, yes, that sex was happening, but I didn't get the inkling there was a long-term relationship.
And can you help us? I appreciate he starts quite late in your time on the SDS, but can you help us with when this conversation took place?
No, but sometime before I come off, just towards the end. So.
Before September?
Yes.
Before the 27th of September 1997?
Before I was off, definitely. And I'd lost middle of July onwards, so because I was already off on my escapades by then.
The evidence that the inquiries received about Mr. Thompson is that his first sexual relationship started in the autumn of 1998.
That surprises me.
Can I ask you, are you sure that Mr. Thompson was confirming to you that he was engaged in sexual activity undercover, or might you be mistaken about that?
I could possibly be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that the conversation was him, because my feeling about him was because of the glamorous locations, the film stuff and all that lot. That was the conversation I was having with him, and that was before I came off. I didn't speak to Jim afterwards, and certainly by September 98, I never saw Jim again after I'd left.
Now, you have said previously that you would have been surprised if almost all of them were not having sexual encounters undercover, in circumstances which suggests that you are referring to those you overlapped with. And you said in your proof of evidence that you only knew of one officer who did not have a sexual relationship with his target. I just want to be clear now about precisely what you knew and precisely what you were assuming was happening. So if we take the officers you overlapped with, did you know whether or not Andrew Coles was involved in having a sexual relationship undercover, or have any positive reason to believe that he was?
Conversations from him was certainly that I felt the conversations with him that sex was within his deployment. Certainly conversations from him, but again, he didn't specify who.
Did he say that he was?
No.
Trevor Morris?
No.
HN1, who used the cover name Matt Rayner?
Same type of conversation with him. I had the feeling through conversation that it was taking place, but he never directly said that he was.
HN26, who used the cover name Christine Green?
No, I didn't have any sort of discussions in that line with it all, the whole female uncomfortable level of talk.
And I've already asked you about Jenna Boyling and Thompson, which leaves of the open officers you overlapped with just HN81.
I don't know. I think he was having difficulty buying a car at that stage, let alone having any sort of relationships at that particular time. I always felt, maybe rightly or wrongly, it was the deep cover SDS officers. That was just something they added to almost like their sort of arsenal repertoire to ensure that, that's how I felt it was, to ensure that your cover was almost unpenetrable. I am playing this person, so that's what I would do. Do you want me to write down the one officer that I know for definitely did not have it? Because I know him, but more importantly, I knew his wife, who would have cut every part of his anatomy off had he ever had sex with anybody. Do you want me to write that down? But you probably know who it is.
I would like you to write it down, please. Thank you. In relation to the other anonymous officers that you overlapped with, obviously nothing at all which might identify them. I just would like a yes/no answer to this question. Do you have positive reason to believe, i.e. they told you or somebody else told you that any of them had a sexual relationship or indulged in sexual activity in their undercover identities?
One officer.
Could you write down either the name or the nominal of that officer, please?
I don't know his number because he's fully anonymised.
A one-night stand or a relationship that lasted for longer than that?
Can't answer that, but definitely a sex.
Can I move now to officers who you did not serve with? Can I start, first of all, and the questions go a little bit beyond sexual relationships, but John Dines. Did you speak to John Dines before you deployed?
No, I was sent to go and speak to him because he was one of the officers that once H86 had said I was coming to the SDS. He told me a number of officers that I could go and speak to who I wasn't aware had been SDS officers. He was one of them that I went down, but on the day I actually went to see him, he was fairly grumpy and fairly angry, so I ended up not having a conversation. But the reason I say it is I went to him, I chatted to him, and I said, H86 has said I can speak to you. And in no uncertain terms, he told me to sort of piss off. He wasn't talking about SDS matters.
Did he say anything at all to you substantively?
No, nothing whatever, that was it, just literally go away. I would like to say his nickname on the squad before I got on it, and you might be able to ask John Webb, because John Webb, I never worked with a bloke. But John Webb actually told me what his nickname was on the SDS, and it was Sergeant Yob. Sergeant Yob.
We understand that former SDS officers contributed to the literature that was available to new starters in a binder.
Yes.
Are you able to help us with what Mr. Dines might have added to the binder?
No, because the binder, which later on became the Tradecraft Manual officially, was just a collection of loose leaf things, and they were anonymised. Nobody signed And I've definitely somewhere in the witness packs seen something that's typed out all in capital letters, quite a bold set, and on that you'll see there's no signature down the bottom, and that's one of the original things from there. Some people call it collection of war stories, SDS advice, but no officer, except weirdly later on when Andy Cole's redone the Tradecraft manual, made it officially, he stuck his name on it, which doesn't surprise me because Andy being Andy type thing, but earlier it was anonymised deliberately. It was actually deliberately anonymised.
Can you recall any discussion about the Mac libel case whilst you were in the SDS?
When I was on the SDS purely in meetings, somebody in summary, I think it was Andy Coles, just talked about having been on a demonstration forum. The file was over, presumably for Andy, and I remember sitting down reading through Helen Steele's file, a very thick file, and I just read it because the fascination of her, credit to her, she certainly had a reputation on the SDS, with regards to John Dylan's, but her own activism. So it's very unusual for me to actually bother to read about other fields I had no input, but I found the history of her so fascinating that I actually sat down and read her file.
Can I just unpack some of that? First of all, did you read a file on Helen Steele or on Mac libel or on both?
No, just purely her. I wasn't interested in the campaign at all.
And when you said because of John Dines and Helen Steele, what did you mean?
I meant that on the unit when I was out there, and I can't remember exactly when the starting point was, but there certainly was a talk by Bob Lambert to the meeting. He addressed it to say in security terms to the SDS, there is potentially a compromise with regards to Helen Steele, and I can't remember where we were at what stage. Something had been triggered with regards to the identity had been looked into at John Dines. I don't want to say too much. That triggered something. Then she turned up in a dress over here. So there was concern, and there's everybody on the SDS was basically putting two and two together. And, hell hath no fury like a woman's scorn. He'd done something badly to upset this woman.
Was there any discussion about whether or not there'd been a sexual relationship between the two of them?
I think everybody came up with 2 + 2 = 4 on that particular thing, but nobody, including Bob Lambert, actually crossed that Rubicon and actually said that. But everybody, it was just the levels that she was going to in this pursuit implied that that very relationship I was told not to have was happening. This was quite close on to him, just about getting rid of the Chitty saga, and here we were potentially facing exactly the same again because of a relationship.
And can you help us with what Lambert was communicating to the unit about Helen Steele's attempts to find John Dines?
Concern for the officers who were out there, particularly the animals who were out there. Less for me because I didn't know her at all, but the fact there might be some sort of compromise coming. They didn't know. As soon as there's a hint of a compromise, they love to put lots of plans. There's an actual SDS contingency plan if things start to go wrong, but they didn't invoke that. It was just because then you're talking about getting rid of flats. You're talking about moving, not going to meetings, things like this. But it wasn't that stage, it was a warning. But I know the animal lot, they all then went off in a huddle in their own little room to discuss more, which I wouldn't have been privy to. But it's very unusual for the management to say, look, there might be a potential problem here.
Were you asked to carry out any research in relation to Helen Steele?
I wouldn't have been. It's ridiculous. The answer is no, but it's ridiculous for me to be asked to do that.
Because you were deployed?
Because I was deployed, yeah. If anybody was going to do it, not just that, if you're talking about a high-level breach, there's only one person who would deal with that sort of level, and that'd be Bob Lambert.
Did you encounter Helen Steele in the course of your deployment?
Not in the slightest.
Was there ever a rumour that Helen Steele had had a child fathered by John Dines?
It's the first time I've ever heard it is this particular moment in time, so no.
I'm putting that because Mr. Chitty, in response to Operation Hearn, said at some point after his retirement he was visited by Peter Francis, who was suing the MPS at the time, likely to have been late 1990s, early 2000s. PF was looking for MC to support him in his efforts, but MC told PF that he wasn't interested as he had left that behind him when he retired. MC recalled that during this meeting, PF told him that activist Helen Steele had a child and that he, PF, believed that the child was from Steele's relationship with SDS officer John Dines. Mike Chitty did say that he thought PF was a liar and was very unwell, so does not know this to be true. So first of all, did you go to see Mr. Chitty in connection with your claim against the MPS?
No, wrong officer. It was the wrong officer. He's muddling it up with the other officer, who I was aware did visit him, and Mike Chitty did agree to help the other officer as long as he got 10% of the final outcome settlement.
Did he?
The response from the other officer was probably as you expected, and the 10% was very clearly stated to him he wouldn't be getting it in this particular officer's own unique way of passing on information.
Just a moment.
Yes.
Do you know whether or not any SDS managers travelled in order to try and mitigate the risk being generated by Helen Steele's inquiries into John Dines?
I certainly was aware Bob Lambert was trying his very best to get authorised to go, and I believe it was Australia. He was definitely doing his best, but I don't know if that actually ever materialised, that he did, but he was doing his best to get the commander in one of these very tight situations. So I don't know where Mr. Moss was involved or all these other officers involved, but I can guarantee the lineage was Bob Lambert straight to Roger Pierce. This had to be kept very tight. So I certainly know there was talk, and whether or not it happened after I came off the SDS, I don't know, but I know he was angling for it. But I've got to say further, Bob Lambert and John Dines were actually friends. I don't know where the friendship happened, but they were actually friends. So I don't know if it was the field overlapped or beforehand, but they were close as friends.
Did you hear of any other manager wanting to travel to address the risk?
I'd be very surprised if Bob relinquished the travel opportunity. So it could only have been maybe after he left the unit, but the answer is no, but I think Bob was angling for the holiday more than anybody else.
Did you hear any discussion about John Dines specifically in relation to the Mac libel litigation?
I wasn't aware of that he had any part to do with that.
Can we move now to some evidence in your witness statement where you said you state HN86 warned you about an SDS officer the unit had lost. He had been married but got divorced from his wife and stayed out in the field with his target. Actively advised to avoid the situation. And you were talking in terms of avoiding falling in love.
Correct.
No names, please. Was this an officer who dated from HN86's time in the SDS?
Correct.
Do you know the name?
I do not know the name.
Can we move now from sexual relationships to the question of your well-being and mental health? You have been very candid about your mental health and about the impact of your service in
Can I possibly ask for a break before we go to that difficult area?
Yes, of course.
Sort for lunch, maybe a bit early, I don't know. Just see this is a difficult area.
Well, if it helps you, I am going to ask you essentially to help us with the impact that the deployment had, and in particular, the chairman. One of the chairman's functions is considering recommendations and what you might suggest is done in the future to avoid psychiatric injury to undercover police
Appreciate it.
officers.
Just currently I'm tired, so if I could have a bit of the lunch break a bit earlier, it'd be appreciated.
Certainly. We'll resume at 10 to 2.
So appreciate it.